the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Templeton Advisory Board to order. If we could start with the pledge, please. I apologize for the delayed response. The department heads were having a meeting with our interim town administrator to go through and kind of formulate their budget and their suggestions. And we will be discussing that as soon as they get here. There are 3 different budgets that are being printed currently that are making their way over from 690 Patriot. So as soon as they get here, we can get to the biggest issue of today, which is the budget. If we could begin with the town administrator report, or would you like me to move on? I can start with the agenda. The minutes.
We just finished 15 minutes ago. I didn't print it.
Oh, that's fine.
It's in my machine. But I can tell you a few things, a few items that I was going to report to you. First of all, I think most of the people here would be familiar with our challenge regarding cash flow. And last week there was a code red message sent out from the police department asking residents to come in and make early tax payments. As of today, we have $150,000 in tax money that has arrived from people who have not been presented a tax bill, but who came in as good citizens to help out the town at this point. So that was a very positive thing. It is a very positive thing. Just to bring everyone up to date, after the cuts on Thursday night, I spoke with Jerry Perry, who was the Director of Accounts for the Department of Revenue in Boston, on Friday morning. And we talked about what had happened and laid out a strategy. The strategy is that the special town meeting within the town meeting will implement those cuts officially. In other words, town meeting adopted the budget. Only town meeting can make the changes, cuts official. And assuming that that happens on Saturday, we will have a classification hearing on Monday. Classification hearing is to set the tax rate. We're going to convene at 6:45. We'll hear from the assessors and their recommendation for a tax rate, and then we'll continue the hearing until after the town meeting is concluded. You have to do that because the cuts don't become official, assuming they're going to be made, until the town meeting is concluded. And so let's say the town meeting is concluded at 10 or 10:30. The selectmen would then proceed to reopen the hearing and to vote on a tax rate. Assuming that all this goes according to that plan, I was told by Jerry Perry again that if we can present the so-called tax recap, and if we can present a certified copy from the clerk that the cuts have been made by the town meeting, that he will certify a tax rate on Tuesday, which would enable the town to get tax bills out either Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday. And it's, I think you probably know by this time, that's critically important because we have the cash flow problem. And we need to get tax dollars into the Treasury so that we can continue to meet payroll, pay our vendors, and make a payment on bonded debt on June 15th. So that's the plan. If it all goes according to that plan, I think the town stands a good chance of getting through this year without any more damage. I was also told that we should include the article on the warrant that would give the town meeting approval for deficit legislation. And I said, our warrant is already finished. He said, put it on there. So I did. We got the selectmen to re-sign the warrant, and it was reposted. So you will see an additional article. We're asking the town meeting to support special legislation that would allow the town to run a deficit, secure a loan from the state for 5 years, and of course there would be state control that would be brought in. He said this is just an insurance policy in case something doesn't go right at the town meeting. So we're still proceeding on 2 tracks, and by next week I think we should be in better circumstances. So that's the way it now looks. The department heads wanted to have a chance to review the fiscal 15 budget, and so that's what we did today. And selectmen and the advisory board are going to get copies of 3 budgets. 1, the budget of the advisory board. 2, a budget that is proposed by Selectman Doug Morrison. And number 3, in the far right-hand corner, the recommendations of the department heads. Again, we spent a fair amount of time on this today, but clearly we're much higher than either Doug or the advisory board recommended. So, but it was important to go through the exercise because I think our department heads did see the tough choices that are required in the coming fiscal year.
Thank you very much. The next item that we can quickly get out of the way is to approve the minutes from April 28th, 2014. After you've had a chance to review them, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from April 28th, 2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John? Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The next item that we have is the appointments, various appointments to the police department. I believe Chief Whitaker is here regarding that item.
Good evening. Appointments for next year and 2015. You should have a list in front of you, yes? Okay. So for the police officers, I've made some changes in my appointment list. If you'll see, some of them are getting 3-year, 1-year, and 2-year appointments. Essentially what I'm doing is bringing them in synchronization with everyone, so every 3 years I can do that group of people. Right now it's kind of helter-skelter, I have to watch it closely. The part-time officers, the dispatchers, and special officers get 1-year appointments always, matrons. You'll see a couple of different appointments where myself and Sergeant Paul Swartz will be appointed as special police officers retired. And the one appointment that we're lacking is a 911 coordinator liaison. I'm hoping that can be picked up through the dispatch system at a later time. But in the assistant liquor license agents, again, I'm appointing all my officers, and what that does is gives the night shift patrol to go into the bar or liquor license establishments if they have any problems or questions. It actually gives them the right to go into the rear of the building, behind the counters, and check on any problems they might have. So normally or in the past, I've only appointed my sergeants and myself, but due to some of the budget shortfalls and the way we changed our shifts, we're not always going to have a sergeant working when we need to have a sergeant working. So that'll help adjust that a little bit. Any questions on any of that?
Sure.
I had a question not necessarily on the appointments, but when you mentioned going into the bars and the establishments and checks, When the shifts change, when do they change?
Tonight,
Tonight. We have given out liquor licenses
Till 2 a.m.
until 2 a.m., and that's the end of the shift. Should we consider,
in the past, I just haven't got to it. I mean, I was gonna bring in the next week that we suspend those and bring it back to 1 o'clock.
yeah,
That way the liquor license establishments close at 1 o'clock. All the patrons have to be pretty much gone by 1:30. That way we know we're button up for the evening, so to speak. So that'll be, unless you want to do it tonight, but that's what I would recommend.
I just didn't know where we were in that process.
Yeah. I haven't got that far.
All right.
Any other questions? If not, I'll accept a motion to accept the list of police department appointments as has been presented by Chief Whitaker.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Thank you very much. My original plan was to move the discussion of the budget higher up in the list of tonight's agenda, which I will, but I can tell that some people are still reviewing it, so I just kind of want to handle some more matters here, because I wanted to give everyone an opportunity that needs to review that, So the next item that we have is the Otter River Road drainage proposal. We have Bud Chase and Dan Lawrence here to discuss that matter for us. Hello.
Good evening. Tonight, I've been talking, since our last meeting, I've been talking with Dan Lawrence. He's with Weston and Sampson. He's actually the engineer with the Back Bay project. I asked him to take a look at it. He did in kind. It didn't cost us anything to look over the Otter River Road, which seemed to be a lot of questions from the four corners going up to Route 2. So Dan's got a little presentation here with some photo shots and some information we'd like to share with you. While he's setting up, the board had asked me at the last meeting if I could cut some cost on the 11 streets that I proposed, and I've gone ahead and done that to see if we could come up with a sum of money to move forward on that drainage road project on Otter River Road. And I did by cutting out some top on the following roads and just doing dense binder in them. Those top savings would be Otter River Road, Lamont Street, Mount View Street, William Street, Orchard Lane, Winchester Street, Walnut, Holman, Harris Street. Those would all get just dense binder. By cutting the top, it would have saved us at this time $172,509. So that's money that could be used. Also, I was asked to put some numbers together for 101 East Templeton, and from the area of Sawyer Street to North Main Street, which would be East Templeton Center. There's two ways that I did it. One was to completely reclaim that area curb to curb at a total cost of $105,242 to reclaim it, put binder and top back. The other method I got a price on was to cold plane it. In other words, what they did on Bolivar Road, shave it and then put a top course at a cost of $44,084. Something we can discuss in the near future, but those are a couple of cost numbers for you. And I'll introduce Dan Lawrence, and he's got a presentation here. I'm going to turn it over to him, and Dan will explain some things to you. Pass those out.
I won't take very long to take a lot of important things to do.
How many copies did you get?
Yeah, 10, we should cover those. Okay, it's a round table. That's why I stole these back. Just make sure. Didn't realize it was one year. Just let pass it down when we start. Hopefully I can handle this. Again, I'm Dan Lawrence from Weston and Sampson. We've been working in town for a few years now up in the back bay. It's a pleasure to be with you. Again, I'll be relatively brief for you if you can move on to your other business. You know, you did ask the highway department to address out of the road in this particular area. So just quick agenda, I always like to keep this so you have the information later. There was a set of plans put together in 2005 by Tate and Howard, and talking about it was done through the water department. You know, since 2005, a lot of regulations related to stream channel crossing standards, wetland standards, and those things have changed. So some of the design is useful. I haven't been able to find all the documents that go with that design, so I can't review hydraulic calculations and all those things yet. We can find some of those and reuse some of that information. Obviously, it gets easier. The survey information that was provided, they did the water main map, and that's kind of what they were doing. It looks like they had drainage. It's kind of narrow to the road, so as you try to look at how our driveways impacted by regrade, you can't even tell right now. So as we go through, I'll talk about various situations. So the culvert, which excuse me, is up here, which is really right now is a sinkhole there. It's sagging. One of the things we looked at is culverts in disrepair. You can just pass this down. I took 2 pictures. Now, I didn't have my waders on when I did it, so forgive me, I'm leaning in. But you can pass those down to a couple. You can just take a glance at the if you want. And what you see, which is typical of most corrugated metal pipes, is that you're getting the failure at what they call the spring line. And so you can start seeing rocks through the culvert. It's a pretty typical scenario for an older corrugated metal pipe. But not you know, you kind of laugh at these things, how long will it last? Well, hopefully a bit longer. Still a lot of metal there. I said my biggest concern is the next large event could take it. You know, if you had another big event, which seems to be happening more and more, it could take it. But let me, if you were to replace the culvert, which was in the original plans, they have proposed a twin set of box culverts, if you will, but 3-sided, so if you will, side by side. In today's regulatory environment, with the new street channel standards that came in a couple years ago, you either have to go with a free-span arch or a wide open box culvert in an open area. You also need to be, and it says it all here, 1.2 times the bank full width, which is the stream width, roughly for the 1.5 to 2 year storm event. So that means the culvert would probably be, I wouldn't have measured it myself. If you ever look at a river's channel, that's where the grass top comes to the eroding point. You can easily measure across. It's about 64 inches. So we're looking at a box culvert of some form in the 6.5 foot wide by 3.5 foot high. Full span would be the minimum size you can use. With that being said, you would need head walls and wing walls. If you haven't been out there, you need a guardrail. It's just an old dilapidated guardrail. Definitely needs to be done. The piece that you're probably all more interested in is road and drainage. But that you know, that needs to be budgeted somehow. But and I did talk about some grant opportunities for culverts. You have FEMA's hazard mitigation program, which is a 75% if you can get the grant. You also have the Section 319, if you're not familiar with that program. That's a Mass DEP program that again would provide 75%. But a town in that case would provide the 25% in-kind services, which is always good. There is some grant opportunities for culverts that don't exist with, say, roadway and drainage. So the drainage. So when you look at the road, it's interesting because this road has, and as many people are aware, has absolutely no drainage on it. You have drainage here, set of structures here, and if I go all the way to here, and then you have a culvert in terms of formal drainage. And everyone goes, wow, that's not very much drainage. Well, I drove around the neighborhood because it's kind of interesting to see what else you have. That is not uncommon, you know, in adjoining streets. Yeah, it's common. So it's I wouldn't be alarmed that there's no drainage. A lot of the systems, you know, we'll call them the rural roads of central and western Massachusetts, have very limited drainage. They depend upon water to flow off the road into ditches, channels, and eventually make its way off the road, which is a much more affordable concept than how many feet or miles of road you have. But you can't put drainage on all of them. It's unaffordable. And so what you really want to make sure is that when you take and do a drainage project, do what makes the most sense. If that makes any sense whatsoever. Don't just say, hey, let's put a drainage pipe in. Once you put that drainage pipe in, then you also have to curve the road. And that's so that the water goes into those catch basins. Otherwise, it's not. You know, so your prices go up and up and up as you think about formal drainage. So Bud and I still drive, and then after I've driven it probably 5 more times since I've come to town. It's nice to see things over multiple days with rain and not rain, things like that. So we broke the project from a concept standpoint into kind of 2 pieces. Basically from the culvert past North Main Street, we're calling this Schedule A, and there's some cost estimates in there we can go through quickly, which covers what I find, in my mind, is the most critical component of where the water is sticking, which really is from like here on Outer River Road, past the 4 corners, I guess as everybody calls it. You have basically flat road, no place for water to go right in here. As everyone's aware, there's wetlands left, right, middle. You have a wetland here, wetland here, wetland here, and then there's wet just on the side of the road, all the way to the bridge. And so, a lot of road, and then you also have, as you come down this way, the road over time, as you sand, and then you plow, you build up a road edge. And so, in some places, you come down through here, the road is 11 to 12 inches below that road edge, so the water doesn't go anywhere, it just sits in the road. And what you really, the highway departments, when they have a staff budget and time, go back out there and they shave off that road edge so the water can leave the road and pass off. And so you have a couple situations. You have this situation right here, which even if you had a flat road edge, it wouldn't work because the water would flow and stay in the road, it's just so flat. You have an area, in my mind, from here, and there's no house numbers here, your house is up here, to basically back to the crossing of Route 2, where I think if you cut the road edge, lifted the road, you could theoretically do it without drainage. I'm showing drainage in this area. But it's very likely that you could get rid of formal drainage here by shaving the edges, lifting the road. There's 4 or 5 driveways there. I drove them 3 times today trying to look at them. Raise the road here. What happens? Will this work? And some of them you need field survey to figure it out because you want to make sure. Many of the driveways already go away from the road, so you can lift it up almost as much as you want. A couple of them I couldn't tell what was going on. You stand there, stand one way, it looks like it's going one way, stand the other way, it goes the other way. So which means it's within a few inches, and you want to be careful there. And so, excuse me. So as you think about this, and obviously financially this is not a decision to make tonight, I don't expect that, it's just discussion, is that you need to take this water right in here somewhere. And I told Bud this, you don't really need catch basins and drainage on this portion of the road. The water's leaving that section of the road nicely. One of the things in the short term to think about, is it's not shown here because I'm drawings that I do for this discussion, but is to take this water and just send a pipe down here and I'll put the manholes in. That's what the magenta marks on the circle is. So put all the drainage you need in here. Just run the pipe in if you need the manholes. You can always find that basin later at some point. Put that in, the drainage pipe in, put a trench binder course in, and then sometime later, if you're satisfied, come and pave it finally, that the water's working out. It would be the most affordable concept. And then from here down, clean the road, add gravel, lift it up. You can't lift it in some area. When you're talking about trying to create some additional ditches, you have to run a little further with the drainage pipe to a certain point. Keep it isolated. As you look at potential expenditures, it gets very, very expensive. We also look at the possibility of sticking under drain under the road, which would be a perforated pipe surrounded with crushed stone, wrapped in building fabric. As this area is so wet, I'm very concerned that freeze thaw that happens. And the water has no place to go. So if you lift the road, you can put it under drain and get that out. I put together on the bottom of this construction. If you want to just turn the page with me, we can just go over kind of, I will say, the summary, and then we can look at all the great details at length. And some of these, and Bud and I had a meeting between his 3 meetings today, so I appreciate that, but just to kind of go through this again. So these numbers aren't final. This is a draft for discussion. But so Schedule A, again, this is if you were to design, bid, build it, have a contractor do it, not, when it can solve your highway department back in place, then build it. This is if you were to put it on the street and bid it. This is Schedule A, so it goes from here all the way to here, through the piece on Main Street, and the paving. You're looking at a $620,000 project. I always say, when I do a lot of budgeting at this stage, when I do all these graphics, are we a little high? Maybe. I have a project coming into the bid Thursday afternoon. It's almost identical. I'll let you know how high it was or low. My guess is it's probably about 10 or 15% high. And so, I don't think the town's in a place, even if we're in a good position financially right now, to say, hey, let's spend $600,000 on this. Those are things that you want to think about. But that does give you the ability to do this. Now, if you took these catch basins out, like I was talking about, you start digging away that project, I have full pavement going through here. You take the full pavement, goes to a trench patch for the first phase. There's all kinds of options we can, to bring that number down, to get it into a Chapter 90 to be affordable. If the department does get reinstated, Bud's crew, when they were there, could theoretically install this drainage here. It would take quite a while, because they have other things going. I've watched crews do this all the time. They start, they have to leave the site. It happens all the time, so one day's productive, the next day's not. But it would save a substantial amount of money, and then you could use this typical bidding environment for reclamation pavement. Schedule B and C, and so C is the under drain by itself, but not really discussion over that. And I wanted to separate that. Schedule B is basically drainage and pavement from here to, if you will, there's that turnoff on the right-hand side if you're going up towards the bridge. So we'll drive on the left and turn off. I'm not sure where that goes, but we can always turn around and go off the bridge. So somewhere in that vicinity, this stops, and that's around 310,000. I'm not using the contingency numbers, I'm just using the next cost. Obviously, we haven't done a survey, we haven't done hydraulics, we haven't done a lot of things. But it's really important. So, you guys see numbers, you're right around $1 million, which is not surprising. I mean, we got a project that we have in Wales, Massachusetts right now, which is about the same length as $1 million. We got a grant for it because they have less than 7,000 people. Unfortunately, your population, you could wait. Love it, but from a grant perspective, it does hurt you. So, but I'm suggesting that, you take the drainage out of here where you can, to lower that number down. I think we've already talked about the above being, you can go through this numbers. Like 110,000 instead of 300,000, somewhere in that range. So that's what the big difference in drainage does. At under drain, I think it's like 75,000. Again, under drain is something else pretty good to do. It's shallow. Takes time, money, but so I think the biggest thing, again, looking at some drawings that exist, they put a drainage pipe down here and just push it out something to about 20 feet of riprap, and then put it right into the stream. The DEP's Wetlands Protection Act is going to require full treatment because it's a new outfall. You're not going to be able to just drop out a pipe. So when you go back to the Conservation Commission and DEP, so there's two ways to do it. One is like build a wet pond, which I don't know why they do this in town, you want to know that. But that's pretty typical of, if you will, a commercial development. They'll put a pond over to the side because they have room. Or you put a structural piece of equipment, a stormwater separator or some form in the street, which is nothing more than a very oversized head with a bunch of, if you will, black box components in it that allows you to achieve that 80% suspended solid. So you need to do that, and that piece is expensive. So you're going to need that in the culvert. If you did some sort of design, and I've done this with a few things right now because everybody is, we design it and we kind of just do construction assistance because the departments are building it. So we come out and go, wait a minute, fix that. And then you procure the culvert, then you just hire someone to set it, and you kind of get to a point where you're aggressively using your own forces and aggressively bidding things and trying to get things that you can't do done. And that would be the big stormwater system, but it's heavy, so we do have to dig, pick. And the culvert's definitely too heavy to pick. So you just hire out that service, and then you procure the material separately, have them delivered, and have someone install it. Much cheaper way to do it, more coordination on the department head standpoint, but it is potentially not. So, no one fast, but I didn't want to overwhelm the meeting. So, I guess questions?
Dan, I'd like you to mention about the cost of that new crossing, that new concrete crossing, and what would have to happen with the water main.
Well, right now, the way it's shown in the existing design is that the water main is over the top of the culvert. I don't know if it was intended originally for the culvert to be installed prior to the water main, but right now we have to slide the box culvert underneath the water main. Right now, there's no valves on each side of the structure. So we have to work with the water department and either isolate the water main in some way. That's one reason you have contingency right now to design it. They can put a valve in so we can control it, shut it off, and they will jump over with temporary water that's another cost that we haven't dealt with. It is possible to slide it underneath, but that really slows dropping it in, so that's an additional expense. But would have to be coordinated with the water department. So, I'm assuming that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's just another added cost to it, because the water main right now is approximately 5.5 feet deep through that area, maybe a little bit shallow, because it's, again, like you said, it goes over the old culvert pipe. But to put this box culvert in, typically, the water main would have to be shut off, cut, valves put, either remove, put the box culvert in, and either the water main would have to go completely underneath that box culvert, or it depends on the elevations. Without shooting grade, you really wouldn't know at this point. So again, very costly to do that. Just wanted to point that out, what we're up against with this drainage system to make it right.
Sure, nobody's going right now, as I'm not aware of those. But if you have any questions, come back at any time.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, yes.
Would you have any idea, percentage-wise, the amount of money our highway department could save over what a contractor would cost, ballpark?
For example, I'll just give you one example. If you were to bid, and I looked at some bids in 2005, I had $75 a foot for 24-inch pipe. But I actually talked to the contractor doing work on Memorial, I was trying to do that for myself. I don't install pipe, so I estimated, like, based on everybody's bidding environment, what the market bears. My guess is, again, you don't pay for your roof, all you pay for is within your taxes, so therefore it's free. So the pipe and stone's about $11 a foot, and then the pipe, so let's just call it 30, so you probably save half of that. No.
So if you're talking about a $600,000 project, you're talking about $300,000 you're going to throw away on a contractor versus putting your own help back to get back to work.
Right, and those are the kind of conversations, and but not only work out with that pay, but yes, you're correct. And this is something that we have been doing with many municipalities because they can't afford creating workforces. Those are the questions we have to address. You have to figure out the finances.
In your opinion, you've driven on a couple of Templeton's roads, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you think we need a full-time highway department in Templeton to do these jobs? You're a pro of this. You're the guy standing off the sidelines looking. I'm just curious what your opinion
Community
is.
with this number of miles of road that Templeton has, this is really professional opinion. Doesn't have anything to do with financial issues.
And just in case there's, I know I see mostly familiar faces, but so you've heard this already or know this, but for anyone who isn't familiar with the Chapter 90 process or at home, you may be wondering why we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars when we have all these cuts. Well, the reason is that we get this funding from the state, and it has to be used for highway and road reconstruction projects, so it can't be used for other items. So that's why we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars when we're making big budget cuts, is because we have to use the money on this kind of thing. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, sure.
But what's the condition of the road from Route 2 up to the intersection with Walton?
It's becoming very deplorable. It's cracking up, there's potholes up there, there's drainage issues up there because the road has lost its shape. Several years ago, the sewer department extended the sewer main from Bolinville Road down to pick up another subdivision, so there's that trench down there that is settled in failure. It's pocketing all the water. So when I initially measured and priced up Otter River Road, it was actually, as I stated before, it's from Bolinville Road down to the Route 2 bridges, leaving the bridge alone because we can't, that's state property. We come across the bridge, we pick it up again, we go to Four Corners, stop there because we had paved that section from Four Corners going down towards Depot Road. I was going to jump a section there where that binder was. It's fairly new to just cost savings, and because we have a potential drainage project on the plans, on the table, and then from that point where we left off, and then going all the way down to Depot Road, because that section there is is very deplorable. It's hard for driving, it's hard for plowing, cleaning, and whatnot. But just to answer your question, the whole road itself in general is in dire need of repair. Being a main road that police, fire, rescue utilize to get from Templeton Center to Otter River, if that's where the call is, and/or vice versa. It's a very hard travel road for anybody using emergency vehicles and having to exceed the normal speed limit, which currently under the condition, I don't know what the speed limit is on that road, probably right now, probably 10 miles an hour, 15, if, you know, you're driving in some areas. But I did want to report to the board tonight, too, that Gene handed me a piece of paper today from Mass DOT that our allotment for FY15 is in, and the price of that was $339,865. That's our new allotment. It's $3,080 short of last year's allotment, but that brings our grand total up in our Chapter 90 account to $1,038,709.06.
I believe so.
Does that include the 45 memorial?
That does not include the, I'm sorry? No, that's the total cost, that's what's available, and then the $50,980 in pothole money, which would bring the grand total up to $189,689.06. I'll send some information over to the board, to the administrator tomorrow, or the selectmen's emails, just to let you know what those numbers actually are. I didn't have time to copy this today. It's been a rather busy day. But anyways, so we got, you know, like I say, $1,089,689. So we've got some money to do some Chapter 90 work somewhere. One problem with that is that I don't have enough hired guys to prep everything.
Just going back to Otter River Road, that stretch from Route 2 up to Baltimore Road, are there plans to do that?
Was my initial plan when I wanted to do Otter River Road project, I wanted it to be like one project from A to Z.
Now, we've talked about the lower part, the other side of Route 2, and you haven't mentioned the upper part, the other, going up to Baltimore Road. Do you have any intention of doing that in the near future?
Yeah, that was part of my plan that I had passed into the Board of Selectmen. Maybe perhaps it was after you got on, John, but total cost to do Otter River Road, skipping that section I had talked about, and the Route 2 bridges would be to reclaim it. And this was a price, binder and top, was $168,834 to reclaim it, binder and top. But since then, the board had asked me to remove the top on those projects. So if I was to remove the top from Otter River Road, it would be approximately $65,000 less of what I just talked about. 65, what did I just say? 65,000 less. So about $105,000 to put dense binder on the entire project, just to make it rideable for now. So that we've got some room to work. We can, you know, I was kind of hoping that, I know a couple of weeks ago we had tabled it so I could get this information for you. There are a couple of projects that are pretty near ready that we could get going early season, so I could get some scheduling done. You know, I had talked about getting Lord Road done. It's in gravel, it needs to be shaped up just a little bit, but get the hot top company in there before the road, you know, once we get the binder down, we won't have to keep going down there to grade it all the time, because there's a lot of traffic, it gets potholed up, and then it's rough until we treat it again, until we go down and grade it again. I'm trying to really try to save any diesel fuel that we have to use, so multiple trips is multiple fuel, and yada yada.
So, but based on you're going to send us the new numbers that you...
Yes, I will forward you all the copies so that you have...
Even if you give us that, do you have enough staff to do any of that?
Right now, it's just myself and my foreman.
And based on, I'm sorry, where's, how many people would you have to have? I guess it's a concern that we're gonna get that back, and currently, we're not gonna be able to do any of these roads because you don't have enough staff. Even, and I looked at some of the numbers, but that doesn't equate to people for me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're just, you're all people, but these are numbers. So I'm not really sure what this means, even in a proposed budget, because we made drastic cuts to your department.
Ultimately, the proper size staff that we had is 7 people on the highway department, not counting me. That's about the size staff we need to do these type of road projects, because there's a lot of roadside prep to be done. There may be some trees that need to be taken out, stumps to be taken out, rocks to be taken out, so that you can prep the roadside to create some kind of drainage on the side. You know, like Dan explained, a lot of these roadsides, some of these road projects that we have never done in the past, the roadsides haven't been done to reestablish, you know, areas for water to run. So that involves, you know, removing the material, trucking it away. You know, it's a multitask, it's multi-people doing certain things all at the same time.
And that includes some of the smaller streets?
Yes, it does. Yeah, some of the smaller streets, let me think, yes, actually some of the smaller streets, where it's kind of heavily populated, like, and I'm just going to use, for example, up in Graves Development, there's a lot of lawns up there, so there's not a lot of roadside prep up there to do other than the finished project when you're doing all the driveway aprons. So, you know, you got all these driveways up there, so there's work one way or another. There's constantly something to do. Trust me, the crew is always busy when we're doing road projects.
Oh, I'm not questioning that at all. I'm questioning the fact that we have Chapter 90 funds and not enough people to do the roadways now, to do any of the projects that we asked you to come back to us with.
Yeah,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
yes, yeah.
Has the board been able to take it, I understand that you're very busy, but so you were able to look at the list that was presented to you, correct?
Right.
And now you asked them to kick back and make some cuts, and then you're going to review that again. And so when the time comes to use the Chapter 90 money, could you just sub out? Because you have the funding, it's there. You could sub out some of these small roadway projects, correct?
Would that be a possibility?
Oh, absolutely, you could sub it out, but then when you sub it out, you're gonna pay prevailing wage. You're not gonna get the biggest bang for your buck. It's all possible. I mean, some towns sub everything out, but again, that $1 million won't last long if you're hiring contractors that are coming in and you're paying them.
So we would have to ask you to do new numbers based on subbing some things out. Is that accurate or not accurate?
Well, yes, but there's a whole process in that. It's costly because you got to put it out to bid. So you got to advertise it. It's got to go out to bid. You got to open the bids. Then you got to do reference checks on these contractors, just like we did in the Back Bay area. It's very time consuming. It's very costly. And where's that money going to come from? I have no money in my budget right now to put anything out to bid. I'm bare bones.
That's right, too.
So but
Okay,
yes,
thank
to
you.
answer her question, yes, it can be subcontracted out.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to the cost of the Route 101 being fixed, or was that?
No, I gave you two different
Yeah,
options,
okay.
and what I'd like to do is, I did not, because I was hoping today to bring Dan down there and get his opinion, since he works with many other towns, about whether that particular area would be a good candidate for a coal plain, whether it would hold up, you know, at a cost of, $44,000, somewhere, yeah, $44,000, call it $45,000, and that's a budget number, or whether or not the road deck is beyond coal planing and it would have to be reclaimed.
Gotcha.
So I brought two different scenarios in, worst case and best case. Hopefully the best case would work at $44,000 to coal plane it, overlay it, and hope for the best. Now, remember, in the near future, I don't know when, because no projects have been presented to us, that the water department has intentions of replacing the water main under that section of road. So it's all about who's on first, what's on second. That's really the way I look at it right now. I have no idea what their plan is. So how much money do we put into 101? Does it need it now? Absolutely. Could we use that pothole account, 50,980, to do that? I suppose we could if we wanted to cold plane and overlay it. That's about all the money we would have for that.
And when do those funds, the emergency pot, need to be used up by?
We have to present something real quick before the end of June, and then the money has to be spent before the end of September. I believe that's what it is.
With no staff to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just making a point, I'm not criticizing. It's going to be very difficult to continue to do any of these projects with no funding.
Well, we have funding, we have no staff.
We have no staff, correct. That's really what I meant, no funding for your staff.
Yes.
Has the board given any more consideration to the light company or water company's offer of doing a project and possibly this drainage project?
They're not doing the project. Are you talking about they're in their pilot?
Correct.
That was just funds, and they wanted it to go to a specific project, not that they would do the project. That they would, instead of what they've normally given us in the past, is my understanding that just they wanted to make sure that those funds were earmarked for something in particular. And I don't know if Bob's had any conversation with them, but it's not that they would do the project. That wasn't my understanding.
And I doubt there's been too much, even though we need to have that pilot discussion at some point, because we know it's not going to, well, it's one-time revenue anyway, so we know it's not going to impact the budget. I think just getting through the next 6 days to kind of know where we stand. So we know, as Diane said, if we even have staff to do the project, so what the best use of that pilot project would be. Yes?
Just one more quick question. The 11 roads on the initial submission from last meeting, have any of the selectmen had the opportunity to drive down them and check all of them out and rearrange the order of any of that, or is that still tabled?
I have not been down personally.
I've driven down most of those, but I hadn't really given any consideration to priority, and then we lost all the staff. So, we lost all our staff.
And I think too, before, at least for me, before I can really decide what I think the priority for me as an individual should be on those roads, that the Otter River situation would need to be addressed, because that would obviously, if we don't know how many roads we can do, won't know kind of what order they should be in. Because obviously, if we were going to pour a lot of money into Otter River, that would cut down on the other roads, and we would only have funding to do the most severe. Yes?
Yes, talking about the 11 roads, we have not received any information from the highway department. What roads are going to be done for us, the Conscom Commission, to go down and check the road to see what has to be done for Conscom, for all the stuff on the side of the road, wherever it is, what they're doing. We'd like to at least have him give us a copy of the roads like he's supposed to have been doing, and I have not seen it in over 3 years on Conscom.
Right, well, he's not supposed to be doing any of the roads because we
But
have
anything he plans, if they can, any wetlands in the area, we're supposed to get a copy of each road that has the stuff. We have not seen anything from Mr. Bud in over 3 years on any wetlands, on any roads that he has done, and he has done several roads.
Is there anything else? Okay, if not, thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Bud, as well.
Thank you.
If we could move on to the budget. As Bob said, as part of his report, we now kind of have 3 budgets that we are looking at. One is the advisory board's recommended budget. The second is a budget that was put together by Doug to address some concerns that he had. And then on the far right-hand side, the department head is the budget that was put together during that 3 or 4 hour long meeting today between Bob and the department heads. We have heard from the advisory board on their budget so far. So what I would like to do is kind of if they had made changes or any that we could hear, and then we'll go on to Doug's and then.
Based upon what has happened in the last week or so, we've had to make some changes to both the expense and revenue side of the budget. which we'll be discussing on Wednesday to finalize our portion of it. If you would like for me to do that, Mr. Chairman, I do have that. I presented that to the administrator last Thursday, so he would end up seeing that, and I apologize that you both missed the opportunity to give to the selection, but you'll see those changes that we do have. If we can get a computer up and working, we'll show you those changes.
Okay.
Is that on here now?
This is the same thing as I had last time. So it's changed.
Well, which was on, we can't get this one, it needs a password. Does it have a password? Oh, I'm not getting what? You can use mine. The items in red are what has changed. So let me go over those. The most recent amount from the state, as far as state aid, that's gone up $35,000. And that just happened within the last week or so. So that went up from 1.3 something million to the 1.4. Local receipts. That's gone down, but there's a reason for that going down. At the selectmen's meeting about 2 weeks ago, it was identified that the retirement for both the light and the water would be illegal for us to end up paying for that through the town. So on that is brought in through a receipt to the community on the miscellaneous. What is that? What's the impact of taking the water and the light retirement out of the local receipts? It's $229,000 approximately from what was there originally. You'll also see on the green sheet, that's taken out of the 628, which I'll show you later. The next item is the MSBA reimbursement. That is for the feasibility study. We found out in talking with the administrator that we had not got any money since 2011. And we have the assurance from the superintendent that she'll be processing the document that was signed by the selectmen about a week and a half or so ago for $160,000. That would be processed in time for us to receive that from MSBA. We originally thought that would be $220,000, The administrator had talked to MSBA, got their assurance that they would process that very quickly once they got the application from the superintendent. That went up about $22,000. So we actually have that coming in at $242,000. On the town charges side, that increased from $6,199,000 by increments amount because of the increases in revenue. Everything else basically stayed the same. If we can go to the green sheet now. We have kept the actual first two. You scroll. There was a discussion by the department heads today about the $80,000 for the administrator. He also was on the agreed with the advisory board that locally we could probably end up getting with about $75,000 there. But the thing that the advisory board, and we had much discussion on this, was that we didn't want to take and tie the hands of the select board in putting down 75, and if they needed to take and get 78, does that mean that they can't get that candidate because we haven't got it budgeted? So we rather have a little bit more there in that budget. Yes, everything else stayed the same. You keep going. The next item I'm thinking about talking about is the treasurer collector salary, since that passed at the ballot as well as the special town meeting. We're recommending that those two positions, you end up having a treasurer collector and an assistant treasurer collector. And what we looked at from other communities as what the average of most communities locally here about the same size as us, so that we could get qualified people. If we had lower that lower, we might not get qualified people. The actual hiring is up to the selectmen. But at least they have that in their budget to they can end up trying to get qualified people. By the way, any numbers that you saw, we had basically for all of the departments, all the major departments, is for 40 hours. Most of the assistants would be gone. At some point, the town has to take and decide whether we can afford to have that many employees working for us. Yes. The next major change, I want to get back down to that, because we even end up taking the rent and end up repair and maintenance. That was lowered on the original budget. If you keep going up, that's still the same, basically the same numbers that you saw last Wednesday. Yes. There's where the retirement is. Originally we had $682,000. That $229,000 was removed there, and that's just storage and the town's portion for retirement. The light and water would be responsible for theirs, and as you heard me say earlier, it'd be illegal for us to take it and address that since there is no contract in place. I think that one, I can't remember which selectman who read the letter from our town council on that particular item. You will scroll down a little bit more. Well, you just stop it.